Louis Vuitton, Dior, Saint Laurent, Gucci. These are just some of the brands belonging to major luxury conglomerates, LVMH and Kering. Positioned at the forefront of the global luxury market, these conglomerates are hugely responsible for the industry's staggering $397 billion market valuation. From clothing and handbags to jewelry and watches, these conglomerates, alongside a few independent houses, stand as the driving forces behind the most coveted and elite luxury products. This industry is a powerhouse. Just to provide you with further insight, LVMH CEO Bernard Arnault, whose estimated net worth is $200 billion, made his first appearance on the Forbes billionaires list in 1997. The conglomerateur briefly even claimed the title of the richest person alive in April, surpassing tech giant Elon Musk. But who exactly makes up the clientele of these huge conglomerates? Who shoulders the weight of that giant $397 billion valuation? Is it the elite, the upper class? Surprisingly, no. It's predominantly the upper middle class that sustains the industry. Jean-Jacques Guillaume, the chief financial officer at LVMH, stated to the Financial Times in July, "We don't sell most Louis Vuitton products to rich people. It is to people who have money and want to indulge themselves." So, the question becomes, why aren't the mega-rich, the upper class, immersing themselves in this industry as enthusiastically as their middle-class counterparts? Why are they denying themselves of those sweet, sweet offerings from Louis Vuitton or Saint Laurent? Why are the 1% not buying luxury? But before we answer those questions, let's define what a luxury product actually is. Defining luxury. I always wonder what the process is creating these pieces. It almost looks like the universe. There is a life inside. Absolutely. While there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of definitions for what qualifies a product to be considered luxury, the most common criteria usually comes down to three things: a premium price point that creates a high barrier to entry, incredible craftsmanship with exceptional attention to detail, and a distinct capability to function as a symbol denoting wealth, or more specifically, distinction. All successful brands within the realm of luxury are able to offer these services in one way or another. That being said, there is still a complex hierarchical web at play. So, let's begin at the basic level by categorizing them into financial groups. The major leagues in luxury. The biggest luxury houses, the ones that come to mind when most people picture luxury, fall into the category we'll refer to as the major league. Examples in this league include Louis Vuitton, Dior, Gucci, and Chanel. All of these brands either already have or are on track to achieve annual revenues of $10 billion. The standout in this group is undoubtedly LVMH's Louis Vuitton, which this year made history as the first luxury fashion brand to attain an annual revenue of $20 billion. These brands, as heads of their industry, typically lead the trends that we see both on the runway and on the streets. Their mission goes beyond merely creating luxury. They strive to push the boundaries of creativity itself. The minor leagues. In luxury. Most luxury brands find their place in this category, but even in this league, there is a spectrum, both financial and creative. Some brands are well known to the general public, whereas others are more obscure, limited to fashion enthusiasts and people with enough money to buy luxury products. Can you please spell Gabbana? Hello? The more well-known and financially successful brands in this group generate around $2 to $5 billion in annual revenue. A few brands under this section are Celine, Saint Laurent, Armani, and Balenciaga. This subdivision in the minor league mirrors the major league in that, similar to most major league brands, Some are very much interested in a boundary-pushing and a more artistic vision of fashion. But it differs in that certain brands focus more on maintaining a traditional identity, aiming to conserve specific codes of dress. The other half of the minor league is made up of brands not widely recognized by the general public, but still hold prominence within the fashion industry. These brands cultivate their own niche of luxury consumers and typically generate annual revenues under $2 billion. Examples in this group include Loro Piana, Brunello Cucinelli, Bottega Veneta, and Loewe. Most of these brands fall under the category of quiet luxury. This will be important later. But some brands like Bottega Veneta and Loewe are typically considered to be artistic rather than traditional houses. Despite this, both brands are still associated with the rigid, quiet luxury movement because they offer products that align with the style's philosophy. An example of a transformation of this type can be found in Celine. Under Hedi Sliman's stewardship, the French house went from being a relatively niche $500 million brand to a global powerhouse raking in over $2 billion in revenue annually. Okay, now that we've outlined a general idea of the categories, we can begin to answer our initial question. Why aren't the 1% buying into luxury? What do the 1% wear? Well, they are, but they aren't. Remember when I said luxury categorization is sort of like a web? This is where that idea comes into play. Most rich people in America and Europe, and when I say rich, I mean the top upper class, opt to not invest in major league brands when shopping for luxury goods. Instead, they spend their money on select minor league brands, with a few exceptions that we'll touch on later, that all fall within or intersect with the realm of quiet luxury. Quiet luxury is a fashion aesthetic coined to challenge the typical style associated with wealthy groups of people. It's completely understated and subdued. See, there are multiple variations of quiet luxury, but recurring motifs in most of them all include subtle usage of or no logos, a subdued or achromatic color palette, and no flamboyant designs. Of course, there are ways to experiment and play around with these elements and still embody the aesthetic, especially when it comes to embellishment, accessories, and aristocratic colorways, such as gold and silver. But essentially, the aesthetic is about elevating normal clothes to offer an if you know type of distinction. It's the literal reason for its existence and success in the modern world. Sign value also reveals why brands situated in the minor league, despite bringing in significantly lower annual revenue than their major league counterparts, might possess symbolic significance equivalent to or even surpassing that of a major league brand. This phenomenon can be attributed to factors and characteristics such as exclusivity, heritage, and craftsmanship that become intertwined with the brand's identity. So by choosing to dress in a more understated manner, the 1% adopt a kind of sign value that signals to others that they aren't new money, people who have only recently acquired their wealth. The idea is that new money tends to showcase affluence through flashy displays, often marked by ostentation and conspicuous consumption. In contrast, the 1% tend to prefer a subtler approach, while new money is associated with a more brash and immediate display of wealth. That said, despite being considered new money because their wealth doesn't go back generations, members of the LVMH family, who are literally at the helm of almost every major luxury brand in the world, also embrace a simplistic approach to style. This underscores 2 points. First, that old money, new money dynamics are less literal than they are a state of mind. And second, that these rigid distinctions do not completely apply to the modern day. Increasingly, uber-rich families and individuals who would be considered new money are adopting characteristics traditionally associated with old money. But back to the topic at hand, the 1% don't want Louis Vuitton monograms covering their handbags, and they really don't want Gucci motifs all over their clothing. They intentionally avoid being plastered in overt luxury because they're aiming to convey that they themselves personify wealth. I hinted at this before, but the brands that capture the attention of the 1% can usually find themselves in the minor league. Brunello Cucinelli, Loro Piana, Ralph Lauren, Celine, all these brands fit neatly into the realm of quiet luxury. See, it's not the uber-rich carrying the heavyweights of the industry. Most of them purposefully ignore the big designers and brands in fashion. It's the upper middle class doing all that heavy lifting. It's the luxury industry during the pandemic. And how do we know this? During the pandemic, while most businesses were grappling with dangerous financial underperformance and the very real possibility of permanent closures, the fashion industry thrived. LVMH's fashion and leather goods units saw a significant 18% increase in sales during the fourth quarter of 2020. Gucci, Kering's crown jewel, delivered revenues of $11 billion, up 31.2% from 2020, exceeding pre-pandemic levels in 2021. Another luxury conglomerate, Richemont, reported sales exceeding $6 billion in the company's third quarter of 2021, a performance 38% better than their 2019 Christmas quarter before the pandemic. The industry was experiencing an unprecedented boom. Any guess who was leading this boom? The upper middle class, of course. You see, during the pandemic, a significant portion of the upper middle class indulged in luxury treats with the additional savings they had in the bank. There was this sense that the world could literally come to an end at any moment. You need to keep in mind what our good friend Jean-Jacques Guiony said earlier. Most luxury items from major league brands are not targeted at the uber-wealthy upper classes, but instead at the upper middle class. While I should note that major league brands do offer custom-made-to-order products exclusively designed for the 1% to request and purchase, such as couture and tailor-made clothing, the majority of their offerings cater to and are marketed towards the upper middle class and nouveau riche. Are they expensive? I mean, yeah. But are they within reach? Absolutely. Relying solely on selling to the 1% wouldn't be enough to pass that $10 billion mark. It's important to know that when people say the 1% nowadays, it's usually colloquialism for the 0.1%. A very, very small demographic of people in the world. And do you think ambitious brands and conglomerates want to depend solely or even primarily on this demographic to achieve $10 billion goals? No way, it's too risky. But the middle classes, on the other hand, they're the perfect group to rely on. The middle class and luxury estimates indicate that the middle class demographic comprised about 350 million people, more than the entire population of the U.S. Men and women from the middle class are the ones purchasing those $3,000 handbags. Men and women from the middle class are the ones splurging on pieces from the latest Fashion Week collections. They have the financial flexibility to occasionally indulge themselves without compromising their overall financial health. They are the literal lifeline of the modern-day fashion market. And where do the middle class shop when they want to indulge in luxury? The major league, of course. The luxury industry post-pandemic. But remember, that was life during the pandemic, during that epic boom with constant, record-breaking highs in the industry. But what about now? Yeah, now, it's not looking so good. The fashion industry, across nearly every metric, has been struggling to grapple with the post-pandemic world. Although still generating billions, the industry has significantly slowed down this past year, with LVMH experiencing a below-estimated 9% organic revenue growth and being dethroned by drug maker Novo Nordisk as the most valuable company in Europe. Major league brands like Gucci are going through a very public struggle, with the brand's organic sales falling 7% in the third quarter of 2023, worse than the 6.2% expected by analysts. The brand even appointed new creative director Sabato De Sarno, who critics have noted has taken a considerably less daring approach to Gucci than his predecessor Alessandro Michele. Creative brands in the minor league, such as Saint Laurent and Balenciaga, have also had to grapple with the new reality, with both reportedly experiencing some level of underperformance in sales this year. They're also delaying major purchases such as homes and cars, redirecting more money into savings amid rising levels of inflation and a global cost of living crisis. Bloomberg reports that this shift in behavior is occurring on a global scale, affecting China, America, and Europe, all massive markets for the luxury industry. This trend explains the declines and underperformances seen from the major league brands relying on middle-class spending. But, as you've probably already guessed, the brands not recording underperformances are predominantly from that latter category of the minor league: Brunello Cucinelli, Ermenegildo Zegna, Loro Piana, Loewe. None of these brands have faltered in the post-pandemic era. In fact, some of them even reported record earnings. Because these brands are attractive to the billionaire population, who are unfazed by concerns of inflation or costs of living, they continue to ride the money wave while their big brother brands struggle to navigate the oceans. In addition to the minor league brands appealing to the 1%, there are also a few major league anomalies thriving in the post-pandemic landscape. One of these anomalies is French luxury brand Hermès. Despite undoubtedly being a major league player, the house has achieved insane financial success, raking in $12 billion in annual revenue last year. Their ability to preserve a level of selectiveness gives them sign value that's hard to find in most major league fashion brands. Sign value that's usually only reserved for the niche minor league brands. With all that being said, quiet luxury doesn't appear to be so quiet anymore. Conclusion: TikTok videos, Instagram posts, and general discourse about quiet luxury, old money, stealth wealth, and other variations of its kind have been on the rise for a while now. This surge has prompted people from all demographics to try to emulate the style. Whether that's the small minority of the upper middle class that still sporadically indulge in luxury switching to more niche brands, or the broader population opting for fast fashion dupes in an attempt to mirror the 1%. Remember when I mentioned that Brunello Cucinelli and some other minor league brands were achieving record sales? Is it just a matter of time before we witness a resistance of this style among the uber-rich? Could they abandon minimalism for something more dramatic, in reaction to the once quiet style no longer maintaining its hushed demeanor? Only time will tell.